Imagine your healthcare buyers having an AI assistant sitting next to them every time they do a vendor search, every RFP review they do, every time they do a product comparison. Well, that future may just have arrived. Hello and welcome to the Health Tech Marketing Show. I'm your host, Adam Chirinos. Thank you for joining us today to listen to this episode about AI browsers. And I want to give a big thank you to our longtime sponsors, HIMSS, and our relatively new sponsors, the wonderful people at Healthcare Now Radio. Today, we're diving into something that just launched in the last few weeks. And this is something that could fundamentally change how healthcare buyers research and purchase technology solutions. Imagine your hospital CIO or CMIO sitting down to do research about your particular product. And what they typically do today is they're going to end up opening about 20 different browser tabs. They're going to be copying and pasting into spreadsheets. They're going to be spending hours comparing features. Well, imagine if they had an AI assistant that's actively helping them research and do that sort of grunt work for them, then synthesize all that and possibly even take action on their behalf. That's not a future scenario anymore. OpenAI launched ChatGPT Atlas, and it's available right now on Mac and Windows, and mobile versions are coming soon. And they're not alone. Perplexity has Comet. In fact, it's been out for several months. I've been trying it out. It's pretty cool. And Google is increasingly integrating AI into the Google experience. And I think it's not going to be long before we see Gemini as an assistant within Chrome. So the browser wars have become the AI browser wars. For B2B healthcare marketers, this isn't just another tech trend to monitor. This could be as significant as when Google first launched. It's going to change how healthcare organizations discover, evaluate, and purchase technology solutions. And if you're not prepared for it, your competitors who are will have a massive advantage. So let's break down what these AI browsers actually do and how they'll change healthcare buyer behavior. And most importantly, what you need to do about it right now. Okay, so let's clarify what we're talking about, because AI browsers are not just like Chrome with a ChatGPT plugin. They're a complete reimagining of how we can interact with the internet. Let's start with ChatGPT Atlas. So what happens is that every browser tab becomes a conversation with AI. So you're not just searching and clicking through results. You're having a dialogue. The AI understands the context of what you're looking at, remembers your previous searches, and can actually take actions for you if you want them to. So let's talk about what makes them different from traditional browsers. And there's 4 things. So the first thing is agent mode. This is actually potentially a game changer. So in Atlas, the AI can autonomously research, can book things, can fill out forms, and can even navigate workflows across multiple sites. So think about a hospital administrator researching for vendor options. Instead of manually visiting each vendor site, downloading white papers, creating comparison charts, they can say, compare the top 5 patient engagement platforms for a 200-bed hospital like mine, and I want you to focus on integration with Epic, and patient satisfaction scores are particularly important. So the browser can go off and actually do that. The second thing is memory across sessions. And this is kind of cool. So the browser remembers what you've researched. It knows the pages you visited and the preferences that you might have indicated. So for healthcare buyers doing month-long vendor evaluations, this means it's really pretty huge, actually, because it means they don't lose context between their research sessions. The third thing is real-time synthesis. So instead of reading 5 articles, say about something like interoperability, The AI instantly synthesizes the information from multiple sources and presents a coherent summary with citations as well. And then the last thing is split screen intelligence. So while you're reading a vendor's case study, the AI can simultaneously be fact checking claims, looking at competitive alternatives, or pulling in peer reviews. And, here's the kind of key thing to be concerned about. ChatGPT has 800 million weekly active users, I think it is. And so it's not going to take much for ChatGPT Atlas to get adopted at scale. And if Google does launch Gemini within the browser, that means it's going to be available essentially to everybody. And that means that mainstream adoption could happen really fast. So let's talk about what this means for how healthcare organizations buy technology, because the implications could be pretty significant. Let me give you a scenario. Imagine that a chief medical officer is looking for clinical decision support tools. So the traditional approach that she would do is go to a browser, search clinical decision support for healthcare, click through the vendor sites, try to remember which one had the sepsis protocol features, check her notes that she's probably written down on a piece of paper alongside, download some PDFs, and then kind of try to remember which vendor said what. And in the end, you'll say, you know what, I'm just going to schedule demos with everyone because their websites aren't really clear enough. Or at least I'll just pick 5 or 6 of them. With an AI browser, she can say, show me clinical decision support tools that have demonstrated reduction in sepsis mortality, that can integrate with Cerner and have been successfully implemented in academic medical centers. And if you can, include the pricing models and anything related to implementation timelines. Frankly, it's the way that they're using tools like ChatGPT right now. So imagine if they're doing that in the browser rather than actually going through and doing this manually. So the AI returns not just vendor information, but synthesizes peer-reviewed outcomes, looks at all sorts of different forms of data, can present actual implementation case studies, and even identifies potential challenges based on all similar organizations' experiences. So this changes the buyer journey. The traditional funnel of awareness, consideration, and then decision, that could get compressed and happen simultaneously. So what used to take, 9 months minimum might take 9 days, and so if you think about the process of having to get buy-in, what used to be a 9-month process, probably with all the meetings that need to happen, will actually take 90 days. But the research is actually much, much quicker because the AI is pulling information from all stages all at once. And here's the other thing is the AI is also learning what good looks like. So it's comparing your claims against competitors, against published research, and against user reviews. And every vendor is being fact checked in real time. So what does this mean for us as marketers? And there's a lot to go through here. And what I'm going to say to you is not what you're going to want to hear is you've got to get moving on this now. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you what I think the big issues are. And then I'm going to lay out some suggestions on how to get started with this. So let's start with your content strategy. So to be blunt, the AI doesn't care about your carefully crafted marketing copy. And it breaks my heart as a longtime marketer and as a writer. It's looking for facts, it's looking for evidence, and it's looking for specific capabilities. And anything that's gated, like that beautifully designed PDF that took several clicks to download, the AI, chances are the AI is never going to see it. Your content needs to be structured. It needs to be clear and factual. So you're going to need to think less about saying things like leading innovative solutions and more about reduces medication errors by 23% based on a study of 15 hospitals over 12 months. You get the point. The AI is synthesizing your content alongside your competitors in real time. You can't control the narrative the way you used to. And if you claim best in class integration, and then there are 3 Reddit threads that describe your integration nightmares, guess what? The AI is going to surface that. The second thing is trust and credibility factors are changing. So AI browsers have memory. So every interaction, every claim, every piece of content is remembered and can be cross-referenced. So, that webinar where your sales engineer mentioned a feature that's coming in Q3, if it's not there in Q3, the AI knows, it remembers. And clinical evidence becomes even more critical. The AI can instantly pull relevant studies. So if you're making clinical claims without peer-reviewed backing, you'll be exposed very quickly. But if you've got strong evidence, the AI will surf at it, even if the buyer didn't specifically ask. Third-party validation is going to become even more important. So your class scores, your peer reviews, how you've done on G2, the case studies with data from health systems, these become your primary currency because the AI weighs these much more heavily when synthesizing the recommendations. The third issue is SEO, because we know it's transforming, right? And we've all strived hard to rank number 1 on Google. The sad thing is that's not really going to matter that much anymore, particularly if AI is synthesizing information from multiple sources. What matters is being the authoritative source, the source that gets cited. And to do that, you need structured data markup so the AI can understand your content. You need schema.org markup for healthcare products. You need clear pricing information. You need detailed technical specification. And this isn't just a nice to have. This is going to be essential for reaching people when they're browsing with an AI browser. Think about optimizing for AI comprehension, not keywords. So the AI understands context and it also understands intent. So the old days of keyword stuffing things like hospital patient engagement keywords aren't really relevant anymore. What you're going to need is comprehensive, well-structured content that explains what your capabilities are. The last issue, and this one really does my head in, is our assumptions about the buyer journey are probably not going to be valid anymore. Because again, the traditional model of awareness, consideration, decision, or problem definition, solution definition, decision, that's getting compressed from months into one single moment. So a buyer might go from problem identification to vendor shortlist in one single AI conversation. So your content can't assume a linear progression. Not that it's really ever been that linear, but anything that was linear before is completely gone. Every piece needs to work for buyers at any stage because the AI might surface your implementation guide to someone who's just started researching the category. That honestly, it just makes my head explode just trying to think about that a bit. Okay. I'm sorry to be a bit of a doomsayer, but I am really, as you can see, a bit agitated about what might happen here. So let's get a bit practical. And I want to give you a 90-day horizon of what you can start to do about it. So let's start with like a simple first step. So maybe this week, go out and download one of these browsers. So ChatGPT Atlas, that's available right now. You can also go get Perplexity's Comet and then put yourself in the shoes of your buyer and search for your own products and your competitors like one of your buyers would do. See what comes up and try the type of queries and questions that a typical buyer would actually use. Not just keywords, but sort of quite long, more than questions, actually prompts. You might be shocked at what surfaces and you might be pleasantly surprised. but it's at least a place to get started. And you can do that this week. It won't take you long to do that. Over the next 30 days, I would suggest that you conduct an AI readability audit of your content. So, for example, is your clinical evidence clearly stated and cited? Are your technical specifications structured and complete? And can AI understand your pricing model? You've got to start figuring out where the gaps are and start fixing those. And if you're wondering where to get started, you can book a call with me down below. We can steer you in the right direction. And full disclosure, we have an offering in this area as well, but we will provide you with some alternatives. The last thing is over the next quarter, I think it is important to start developing an AI first content strategy. This means creating content that's designed to be synthesized, not just consumed. Think FAQs on steroids. Think comprehensive, factual, structured information about every aspect of your product. And the other thing you're going to need to do, if you haven't done it already, is to start building relationships with the third-party validators. Get your customers to write reviews on G2. Make sure that you're well represented in class. Have a plan to publish case studies with real metrics. Get your clinical studies peer-reviewed and published, because honestly, that's going to be the most important ammunition in the AI synthesis battle. And then the long-term thing, and this is, I don't think this is something you're just going to do in 90 days. This is going to take a while to understand, particularly as we start to learn what happens when buyers adopt these things, is to rethink the way that the buyer journey map. And so start to think now about how buyers would interact with AI assistants at each stage. What questions would they ask? How would they write a prompt? What comparisons would they make? And then start thinking about the content, the experience, and the infrastructure you might need that anticipates these sort of more AI mediated interactions. I can't stress this enough. This isn't a kind of a maybe someday situation. And, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe these things won't get adopted. You know what? I played around with Comet for a while. I stuck with Google Chrome rather because I'm just used to it. But I can tell you, probably like yourselves, my search behavior has completely changed. I start with ChatGPT now. I don't start with Google. In fact, I found Google to be irritating. I also use voice increasingly when I'm doing the searching because I'm using it to craft prompts. I'm not alone. I believe that buyers are going to do it, particularly because what they've got to be researching is so complex. So AI being built into the browser could change things in a pretty significant way. And if you are able to get ahead of this, and particularly get ahead of your competitors on this, it's going to give you a massive advantage. So again, your homework, go get one of these browsers and start playing around with it. I guarantee that you'll learn something with it. I know I did. And you know what? They're kind of fun too. So thanks for listening. I'll see you next time when we dive into something else. I've got lots more planned. And by the way, if you found this useful, please give it a thumbs up. Give it a positive rating on whatever podcast application you use, or give it a thumbs up on YouTube and share it with your friends. They may say, thanks for being such a bummer. So that was such a depressing episode. Or they may thank you for saving their career. Anyway, with that, I will bid you farewell and see you on the next episode.